a kind of a phenomena that you won't see, and when you do see it, it's difficult to explain it unless you go through some simple energy analyses, and it can be very revealing. So let's just talk about what we're talking about here. We've got a chain, and it's on the sprocket, and it's just hanging stationary like that. And then this is a picture, snap picture, of course, when it's actually moving. So here, the chain, as you can see, there's no strangeness in the shape of the chain. But over here, the chain is in fact moving in this direction, clockwise. And so it's on the sprocket, and then it kind of goes a little bit beyond the sprocket, straightens out a good bit, then it comes down here, and it has to come around and come back up, and eventually goes back up like that. So what's causing these deviations from the straight line thing when it's moving? Well, let's imagine let's just look at the energy of an individual chain link. The chain link here has got a linear kinetic energy at that point. And when it gets on the sprocket, it's got a instantaneous linear kinetic energy that way. But it's also got an angular kinetic energy because the link was here, straight, and then it has to be changed. And so the kinetic energy at this point is higher than it is at that point. And when it comes off the sprocket, it has that energy persists until it is damped out by the friction in the chain and comes down to the bottom. Now to the bottom, you can see the chain each link is here. It has to, it's angular, it has to pick up the angular acceleration and therefore angular kinetic energy, and then it overshoots, and it has to be damped out again by the friction in the chain, and it gradually pulls it back. Now, the reason that it's more pronounced at the bottom, this overshoot here and that overshoot there, is because there's no tension, or very little tension in the chain, just the gravity weight. But up here, you've got the whole weight of the chain holding it up. Okay, so this is essentially what I've just walked through, and again, you can come back and start and stop the presentation and look at it. And this is just more of the same about the angular kinetic energy business. Okay, as I said. And again, this was the sort of explanation of what's going on, and some more of the same kind of idea. But before we get into that, let's just put the chain up here and operate it, and you'll see what's going on. There's the chain in a stationary situation, and we'll gradually move it up, speed it up, and you can see that there's the shape that it was before. And it's quite stable to perturbations. And you can once it becomes stable, there's the picture. Okay? Now, it's not just chains. Belts are the same way. But in most cases, like the chain on your bicycle, there's a sprocket down here as well, and there's a tension between them, and it tends to take out. You don't see these deviations. That's why it's not so evident in the real world. Okay? So that's kind of an interesting piece about the conservation of linear and angular kinetic energy. It isn't just having to do with chains. This can occur when you have if an airplane were going straight and then it had to be turned, you have got to apply that kind of some kind of moment that you have to apply over a length of time to increase the kinetic energy of the airplane, because when it actually gets into the turn, and similarly when it comes out of the turn. And not only airplanes, but also race cars or any car. That when it's going straight, it's got a kinetic energy, and then when it's in the turn, It's got a kinetic energy instantaneous that way, as well as the thing is rotating. So at some point, you have to increase the energy of the car and give it some angular kinetic energy. And for the car, it can occur from the forces on the wheels, differential forces on the wheels of the car to cause this couple to cause the car to rotate. And of course, for an airplane, the rudder has to apply those forces, so aerodynamic forces. So there we are. That's just a kind of an interesting piece. That's an addendum to the mechanics portion of the physics lecture. Okay.